No better, no worse. It's that damn road. Don't mention it. Sometimes dead is better. Horror films usually exploit certain fears and do so in a grandiose sort of fashion. But then you have Pet Sematary, which is a film that's basically a horror for people who are afraid of death in general. There's no avoiding death. Man, that sucks. What a grim. You could avoid clowns. You could avoid the water. You can't avoid death, motherfucker. This film is a tremendously raw experience as far as emotions felt with death. There isn't much grandiose about what goes on in this film. It certainly is scary, but it's just so honest. And just like Judd says, sometimes dead is better. Meaning that as much as you'd love to undo some of the negative things that happen over the course of our lives, sometimes it's just better, or supposed to be that way. Yeah, it sucks, but maybe there's a reason for that experience. You don't love and appreciate the good times without the terrible. Ugh, I hate speaking in bumper sticker. Or maybe that's more Hallmark card than bumper sticker, huh? While this story is unmistakably something all Stephen King's own, it's just one of the many that follow the basic premise and structure of the classic short story The Monkey's Paw. And while the century-old axiom of "be careful what you wish for" appears in Pet Sematary as "sometimes dead is better," there are general themes that fall in line with the W.W. Jacobs classic. Another great asterisk that's associated with this film is the fact that Stephen King calls this his scariest story, or scariest to him. Stephen King had a similar encounter as the kite scene in real life and said the whole story flooded into his head at that moment. What I think is funny about this, and it's just a dumb little CP-ism, is how much Stephen King based this on his life and story, yet there isn't the Stephen King trope that are found in so many Stephen King adaptations. The only reason Pet Sematary came to us was actually due to an impending strike in which studios needed to scoop up as many shoot-ready scripts as they could that didn't need much touch-up or any at all. This way they had stuff to shoot while the writers were on strike. If there was no strike, we wouldn't have Pet Sematary. Can you believe that? Pet Sematary was a shelf story. Amityville Awakening is a shelf story, not Pet Sematary. Literally, I mean, literally, go look at the history. The consensus at the time was people don't care about Stephen King movies anymore. There is a bit of truth to that, but the only reason is because the last taste of Stephen King the public had in its mouth was Maximum Overdrive, which Stephen King directed. The coked out writer directed a film.
This machine just called me an asshole.
Did I mention he's a writer, not a director? Interesting side note, look for a Breaking Bad character to bite the bullet in Maximum Overdrive. You're welcome. Studios figured that Stephen King stories were burnt out. But alas, Paramount semi-reluctantly scooped up the rights to Pet Sematary, and we got going. Mary Lambert was brought in to direct, and she had notoriety from directing Madonna music videos. And it feels like home. Not only was the public saturated with Stephen King movies, but the horror genre as a whole was going through a dead period, a lull, so to speak. A difficult time? I don't know. Bad movies? How do I put it? The big time slashers just weren't providing quality, and horror just seemed dead at the time.
Sometimes dead is better.
It's a perfect storm situation like this where idiosyncratic films like Pet Sematary end up succeeding. And here I am talking about it. There's no true villain, so to speak, in this film, but there are a couple of kills. And yes, there's a 5-star kill by a regular slasher standards, even if just for the wince factor. Judd gets a couple of slashes that just make you clutch those parts of your body when they happen. Do you want to know how I got these scars? Like I stated earlier, this film's a bit idiosyncratic in that there's no true genre for it to fall into. But there's so much to love about this movie from either a horror or thriller perspective. It's a Venn diagram movie, much like Silence of the Lambs. And and it has fans in separate genres. Thriller and horror fans can both lay claim to this movie. I would suggest that the lack of kills keep it mainstream friendly, but the sheer strength of the scares and the quality of the gore and kills more than provide enough for the horror hound. Pithy but powerful. Word of day toilet paper. Pithy. I'll never use that word again, ever. Something that I would call the most powerful shot in the movie. If you're a parent, if you know somebody who's, it's one of the most powerful shots in all of film for just the chills it sends down your spine. There's nothing incredibly noteworthy about the shot itself. It won't appear on any top 10 lists, but the message gets across. The shot in particular is the exclamation point on the Gage kite scene. Whether or not you have children, that last shot with the truck head on, just so powerful. It's really hard to put a label on this movie, but like I said, it's a horror movie for death itself. And the fact that it has that monkey's paw connection keeps people's minds racing. And movies like that, I like to call them doggy bag movies. A movie that you kind of keep picking at even after you're done with the experience. Stories that just stick with you for an extended period after watching. Pet Sematary is a true diamond in the rough when you consider some of the stories or adaptations out there from Stephen King. I would suggest Pet Sematary for anybody who's looking for a really classic Stephen King miserable time. And by miserable, I smile when I say that. It's a solid story that, other than that one incredible shot, doesn't really stick out visually. There's no twins down a hallway scene. The story itself doesn't have the girth of a Shawshank. And hell, some of the acting is wince-worthy. Oh, he only really did soap operas, huh? So hard to believe. It's just a powerful enough story that does most of the work for you. You just sit back and get taken on the ride and chew it apart when you're done. And then it just kind of sticks with you. Just a great story that provides a lot of thrills and misery. And again, I mean that in the best way possible. So what about you? What do you think of Pet Sematary? Do me a favor and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of Pet Sematary. Appears in sets. Be careful what you wish. Yeah. About this. That's.
Disagree with CP? Let us know in the comments.